Since the beginning of time, men have put a woman's beauty and passion above their own better sense. Adam was evicted from Eden because of Eve. Kings have lost entire kingdoms due to their obsession with a woman. Wars have been fought, and thousands of men have died for the love a man had for a woman, but yet, through the passages of time, blood is still being spilled due to the enchantress. No matter what pain they inflict or the danger that surrounds them, a man will risk his life to just be in her presence. That Friday was no different. A man and his blood was spilt in the West Tennessee town of Milan when friends rushed to the aid of their buddy as he feared for his life due to the illusion of love. This is the horrifying story of murder and deceit in a small southern town through the eyes of strangers. Dylan had met Khadijah on Tinder earlier this year. Their relationship seemed to have evolved rather quickly. Too quickly for the father of her children to accept it, if he even knew about it. On June 26, 2020, Khadijah picked up Dylan, and they went back to Khadijah's residence for a date. Khadijah got into the shower when Jerry, her supposedly estranged boyfriend, knocked on the door. Jerry was supposedly at work, and Dylan had asked Khadijah, was there any chance Jerry may come by? She told him no. Jerry and Khadijah have children together, but the children were not at the residence on this day. While Khadijah was getting ready to shower, Jerry came into the house and immediately asked, "Where is he?" because Jerry suspected Khadijah was seeing someone else. Dylan hid in the closet before Jerry could see him. Dylan got scared and called his friend Kyle. Kyle was at a nail salon at the time. He had taken his friend Kayla, Dylan's sister, to get her nails done. Kayla's boyfriend DeAndre was with them, and Lewis was as well. They were all very close friends and were always together, we were told. When Kyle and the others arrived at Khadijah's house, Kayla and Khadijah started fighting because Khadijah had picked Dylan up, only to have him barricading himself in the closet due to her children's father's violent temper. We have been told Khadijah's father is a U.S. Marshal, and it was his gun that was retrieved from the lockbox by Jerry. Why did Jerry have the combination to a U.S. Marshal's lockbox is the question I have. The gun was already loaded and a bullet was in the chamber when he returned, and everyone started yelling at Jerry to put the gun down. Jerry was being violent with everyone, including Khadijah. Kyle has never been the type of man that could put up with a man putting hands on a woman, so he punched Jerry to get him off from everyone. Kayla then tried to get the gun out of Jerry's hands, but it was too late. Jerry turned the gun on Kyle, in which he was unarmed. Dylan was in the closet when he heard the shot that took his friend's life. At that moment, Lewis, in fear of his life, his friend's lives, and having to watch a pistol being shoved in Kyle's mouth as Jerry squeezed the trigger, Lewis pulled a gun and fired at Jerry, hitting him in the buttocks. Lewis saved many lives that day, even though he had to watch his friend fall to the ground and die right before his eyes. When the police arrived, Dylan came out of the house and seen what had happened. Dylan was arrested that day, but was questioned and released the following day. DeAndre was arrested for kicking Jerry after he was shot because Jerry was yelling, "Someone help me, I'm going to die," knowing Jerry just murdered their best friend. Kayla was arrested for putting hands on Khadijah. Lewis was arrested for shooting Jerry in self-defense. They're all out of jail on bond. Jerry was taken to the hospital and then airlifted to Vanderbilt Hospital in Nashville. Jerry has not been charged with the murder of Kyle. He has not been charged with any crime. There has been 4 court hearings so far, and the last one was on August 12th, with Khadijah stating that Jerry wasn't living at that home at that time of Kyle's murder. Jerry didn't have a key to the house at the time of this murder. Dylan did. Jerry put a gun 3 inches down into Kyle's mouth and blew out his bottom teeth, the roof of his mouth, and into his brain, according to forensic reports. But yet no arrest for murder. Jerry and his now fiancée, Cadesia, are still proclaiming it was an accidental shooting. An accidental shooting with a gun stuck in a young man's mouth? That's not even the kind of shooting if you feared for your life. Fearing for your life is a shot in the rear end, not in the mouth. Putting a gun inside someone's mouth and pulling the trigger is murder. Jerry is out of the hospital and free to live his life. He and Cadesia are planning a November wedding while Kyle lays in his grave and Luis waits to go to court on bogus charges just because it happened at a U.S. Marshal's daughter's home with a U.S. Marshal's gun. Why did he have his gun at her home is the question that I ask. Kyle's mother, Kat, went to Cadesia's home shortly after her son's murder to place some flowers at the place her son was killed, but Cadesia's father told her to remove the cross and flowers, that he was also in mourning. She did remove the cross and flowers and took it to Kyle's apartment and left it there instead. Her son had just lost his life at the hands of his daughter's estranged boyfriend that was shot in the butt. Was he mourning her dignity or lack of it? Was he mourning because of the fact the world just found out his daughter had a white guy in her closet? Or maybe it was the fact a young, innocent life was taken away with his gun. Kyle's mother told us they had moved to Tennessee 2 years ago from California for a better life. I looked up the Tennessee state law that you do have the right to bear arms if you feel your life is in danger in your residence. However, Cadesia said she was with Dylan and Jerry knocked on the door that day because he did not have a key. She even testified to this. He wasn't a resident at that home at that time of Kyle's death. Kat, Kyle's mother, is fighting for justice for her son. She has told the Missing Truth this: my son was murdered. My son's forensic came back and it stated that my son was shot in the mouth. This shot blew out my son's teeth, the roof of his mouth, and into his brain. Cadesia wants to claim that Kyle was shot by accident, and clearly this was not an accidental death. I've reached out for help. Nobody is reaching back to help me. It's an open investigation still, but the facts are the facts, and Jerry should be in prison for life for taking my son's life. I've got 2 other kids that lost their big brother, and I lost not only my firstborn, but my best friend that day. Please help. Heartbreaking words from a mother seeking justice for her son. She also has said Kyle was born in California on 9/11/2000. My son was a gamer. He loved playing Madden football. He played football as a child. He loved to travel and drive. He loved music and making music. He liked rap. He loved Little Peep and had several tattoos of Little Peep. When he was younger, he played the double bass. Kyle lived in Jackson, Tennessee with his friends. He was murdered the day before he was to start a new job at Walmart. It's sad enough that Kat lost her son to a senseless murder, but she is getting no help in her fight for justice. No one will help put the murderer that killed her son behind bars. The media barely covered this incident and declines to cover it now. Luis's mother is also fighting for justice for her son that was falsely accused of a crime when he was only defending himself and others at that scene of this senseless murder. Luis' acts of heroism and quick thinking saved his friends' lives that day because it is believed Jerry was probably only getting started killing that day. If it hadn't been for Luis's selfless acts of bravery, they all would have been leaving that home in body bags that day. Luis shot Jerry in self-defense, but the homeowner, having close ties to one of this country's top and duly respected law enforcement agencies, which is believed to be hindering true justice from being served, and all charges being dropped on Luis. This is not a cut and dry case by all means. A young man that had his whole life in front of him is dead at the hands of Jerry Jr. Another young man was able to save his friends' lives, but is being prosecuted for standing his ground, a right we have established in this country. He had the right to not only shoot Jerry, but to fatally stop him from taking any more lives that day. How screwed up is that? So, we know there was a man murdered on June 26, 2020. The man was murdered with a U.S. Marshal's gun that was not at his home, but at his daughter's home. The combination was known by a non-family member, and it was used to remove the gun from the lockbox. This wasn't a justifiable homicide. This was not a self-defense killing. This was murder, and the murderer is allowed to live his life freely, without consequences. Both mothers have reached out to many law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, and was offered no help. The DA won't answer their calls. They have no help to seek justice for their sons. Kat, Tab, we wish we could do more for you than just a podcast, but please know we are with you in your fight for justice. One of you lost your son, and we know that Luis is facing an uphill battle with the unjust justice system. Before we end, Kyle's mother, Kat, has some words for her son, Kyle, who was fatally shot and killed that day by this senseless act.
I love you, Kyle, with all my heart. You'll always be my best friend forever. I'm so sorry for what happened to you. You have an army of people, family, and friends that love you and miss you every day. You're forever in my heart. I still can't believe you're gone forever. I know I'll never be the same without you in my life. I love you, baby boy.
Words from a heartbroken mother over a senseless act. May peace and justice prevail and the true guilty party get what's coming to them, a prison cell for life. For further updates on this case, subscribe to The Missing Truth to receive notifications. Follow us on our Facebook page and our private group. Remember, some sort of truth remains in a lie. Have a good night.